Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Returning to Work, a financial preparation for a secure future. Thank you so much for joining us wherever you may be across the great state of Michigan today. My name is Steve Peterson. I'm the site manager at our Michigan Rehabilitation Services office location in Port Huron. I'm pleased to host this webinar today in support of National Disability Employment Awareness Month. MRS has been hosting a number of online sessions throughout the month of October to provide our customers, employers, and community partners with information regarding employment opportunities and resources for persons with disabilities. And again, thank you so much for joining us. For today's discussion, we hope that you'll gain some knowledge in planning a return to work, knowing resources that may be available to you, discussion of both short-term and long-term financial strategies to help protect you and your family. To help us today, we've assembled a great group of individuals to provide some excellent information and insight. I'm going to let the guests introduce themselves. From Stalt Financial, please welcome Chris Ball.
Good afternoon, Steve. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you joining. My name is Chris Ball. I'm from Stalt Financial. I'm one of the co-founders of our firm. We specialize in disability planning. We help families that have a loved one with special needs plan for a bright future. And we also assist planning with families and also business owners to help them with their financial planning needs as well.
Thank you, Chris. From the MRS Business Network Division, we have Gene Bomarito.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am a business relations consultant for the Business Network Division in Region 6, the Eastern Michigan District Office. I am a man with a white beard, blue shirt and tie, and I am pleased to join all of you today.
Thank you very much, Gene. And also from the MRS Business Network Division, Christine Roberts.
This is Christine. Thanks, Steve. Hi, everyone. I'm a woman. I have brown hair, brown eyes. I wear gold rimmed glasses, and today I'm wearing a pink shirt. I'm one of the occupational therapy consultants on the Business Network Division. I work statewide. I'm a specialist in brain injury, and I assist our customers and businesses with identifying accommodations in the workplace. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Christine. I'm now going to turn it back over to Chris Ball from Stalt Financial. He's going to help get us started this afternoon and talk a little bit about the services available as we kind of think about a return to work here. And again, the financial preparation for a secure future. Take it away, Chris.
Great. Thank you, Steve. And just to let everyone know, I'm a man. I have very short hair. I have hazel eyes. I'm wearing a sports jacket and a dress shirt. And thanks again for having us today. Again, my name is Chris Ball. We want to talk about returning to work and how we can prepare for a secure future. Certainly, that's something that all of us desire. And we want to help give you some ideas on how you can do that as you think about a return to work and knowing that you have options as well. Again, just a brief background about myself. I'm one of the co-founders of Stalt Financial. My other two partners in the business, Catherine Toon and Dan Zeck, are with us today as well in the audience. And this is something that we're very passionate about. I'm the director of our special needs planning group. I have a designation from the American College, which is called a chartered special needs consultant, which means that I'm equipped to help families with a loved one with a disability or a special need do the financial planning needed, and also do it with an eye towards all the many benefits and things that we need to be aware of that we'll talk about. I'm also the author of a book, Making Sense of Special Needs Finance, a Caregiver's Roadmap to Financial Stability. I'll give you our website at the end of my portion, and we'd love to have you come by and visit our website, and you can obtain a copy of the book if you would like. When you think about financial planning, there's so many areas that we need to be concerned about. And this goes for every family that we work with, whether we're helping someone plan for retirement, whether we're helping a family with a loved one with a disability, navigate the system and figure out how we need to do planning, business owner, whoever we're working with, these are the areas that we come across. So certain families, certain planning requires that we give certain areas more attention. When it comes to disability planning, there's many areas here that we need to be mindful of. Certainly government benefits, maybe SSI, Medicaid, Medicare, SSDI. With you contemplating a return to work, we keep in mind the trial work period. And knowing that some of the things we talk about today, we might want to wait to see how the employment goes before we implement some of these strategies. So you're confident in your income and what's going to be coming in every month. But these are the areas that we focus on, and we help our clients navigate all these various areas. I like to just briefly explain what we do with disability planning, special needs planning. You can see here we have a timeline. We have traditional family planning, like we talked about, many of the same areas that we need to think about as a family. But when it comes to special needs, perhaps a loved one with disabilities, we have other areas of concern that we need to be aware of. Certainly the government benefits I mentioned. What about transition ages? So here in Michigan, we have age 18, which is a very important milestone when you become an adult. Perhaps it's age 26. Services in Michigan continue to that age. What's going to happen after that? What can we provide for the family? What's available? So there's many different areas that we want to plan for. And ultimately, we want to protect and balance financial resources for everyone we work with. And we'll talk a little bit further about that. Some of the principles that we want to share with you as you're getting back to work. And really, again, these apply for all of us. Good reminders for us every day when we think about some of the points we want to share today. Great question here. What is financial well-being? I think this defines it really well. 4 areas we can think about. First, having control over day-to-day, month-to-month finances. So we know how much money's coming in and we know how much money's coming out. Our goal is that we have more coming in than we have going out, right? Number 2, having the capacity to absorb a financial shock. Perhaps encountering a disability. Now that is certainly a financial shock that many people encounter. 1 in 4 people before age 67 approximately in this country will have to deal with that at some point in their lives. Are we prepared for an event like that? Do we have money saved up to help our family during this time? That certainly would be a great goal. Number 3, being on track to meet financial goals. We'll talk about that today, how we can think about financial goals. What are goals that are important to you as you return to work, as you think about more income coming in? Maybe that expands some things you'll be able to do to enjoy your money. And finally, having the financial freedom to make choices that allow one to enjoy life. And I can tell you from doing this for a long time, money is certainly an important part of that financial freedom, but we want to make sure that we balance that with what's important to you and getting to do the things you enjoy. We find that those are the people we work with that do truly get the most out of life. So let's get into our first area that we like to think about, and that's saving money. We get asked all the time, what's a good amount for me to save? Well, a lot of that depends on what we want to accomplish. If you want to save up for a house or a car, certainly that would require more savings. But really, we want to talk about just getting in the practice of saving and making it automatic. Most people in our society, sadly, do not do this. Even people you think of that seem to be very well-to-do, they look on the surface like they have a lot of money. Sometimes in our business, we find out that those people are maybe not really financially healthy because they don't have a lot of savings backing up what they've spent their money on. So consider starting point, saving 10% of your monthly net income. That's a starting goal. It may be lower, maybe $25 a paycheck, $50 a paycheck. That's an amount that you can determine. Again, the key is we want to build these habits. And then it mentions some things we can save up for. And really, that's an endless list, right? There's probably, I can think of all kinds of things I would like, but I don't know if they're in my budget. So emergency fund, retirement savings, large purchases, college, really, again, all kinds of things that we can save our money for. Like I mentioned, think of it like part of your monthly budget. We work with clients that treat it just like a monthly bill. They'll bring a list of things to us and show us all their areas their money's going to. They pay themselves first, and that's like a bill that they pay every month. So again, it can be a fixed expense, it can be a percentage. Maybe as you get established with your job and you see that it's going to be long-term, that it's going to be a good fit for you, you can start making things like direct deposit, maybe put a part of your check away to save and automate that. And as you reduce expenses, we'll talk about the goal of eliminating debt and managing debt. Maybe that allows you then to put more money aside. Investing. I wanted to talk about this briefly, not only very important part of what we do, we help people manage money and think about investing their money. But I remember when I started my first job and I was in a corporate environment, you might find this when you start your job, you'll get a packet with all these benefits. And the company may offer, as part of that, a savings program. You might be familiar with like the terms 401k and IRA, things like that. You might have an opportunity where the company will help you with that. They might match part of your salary to save for your future. Well, with that in mind, we want to address that. So give you some things to think about. Investing, that's how we get our money to work for you. That's how we get it to grow. And we want to think long-term with investing. Hopefully, if we have time on our side, we still have several years in our career, we can put out some of our money, part of our budget, put it away for our future. So when we're investing, we want to know why, what's it for. We'll talk about risk tolerance. We want to make sure that you're comfortable with the amount of risk you're taking with your money. We want to be realistic. It takes money time to grow. Sometimes as human beings, when it comes to money and investing, the toughest thing we have to deal with is patience or markets that go up and down. That's something we have to contend with. And finally, plan for the long term. We'll talk about some short-term strategies and long-term strategies, as Steve mentioned, but really think about your long-term health as well when it comes to your finances. So risk tolerance, how do we even explain that? I like to think of it like a speedometer. If you think about it on your car, let's say that goes from 0 to 100. So when it comes to investing, I would say 0. If we're not going to take any risk with our money, we would probably get our paycheck, maybe go cash it at the bank, and then we would put the money under our mattress or maybe in a safe at home. We don't want to do anything risky with the money. On the other hand, at 100, we're taking perhaps full risk with our money. We have it invested. Maybe we're very aggressive with our investments. We're willing to risk a lot of loss to get potentially a lot of gain. Historically, we know stock markets go up and down. We've had some very bad years in recent years, but long-term, people tend to get good results from staying in the market and being somewhat aggressive. It's a very personal thing. We want to be comfortable. We want to be able to sleep well at night. So if we're invested too aggressively and we're worried about it, that's not appropriate. We find that most people fall in the middle right here, somewhere between conservative, moderate, and moderate aggressive. So that'll help you think about risk tolerance when you are looking, maybe selecting some investments. And then asset allocation. Most of the plans we see with companies when you're starting work, they'll have a variety of funds that you can invest in. Maybe it's a variety of mutual funds. One thing that is popular nowadays is called a target date fund. I'm expected that I'm going to retire in the year 2050. I'm going to select that fund, and then that fund will kind of have a balance of stocks and bonds that not only provides a lot of diversification, many different investments, but it aligns with the amount of risk that I probably should be taking at this time. So those are common. If you start work and see these types of investments, hopefully there's some resources that can help talk you through this. I know back a lot of times when I was picking this in my 20s and was starting my career, I didn't know what I was even investing in some of these. I would look at the names and say, hey, I like the name of that one. Or it wasn't a very effective way of selecting because I didn't know what I was investing in. But now, thankfully, there's a lot more education out there. Obviously, we can be a resource and help you understand what these asset classes are and how you can set up your money through your plan at work, hopefully. Let's talk about protecting your money for a few minutes. This is an area that we highlight so strongly in our practice. We feel very passionate about this. We find that a lot of people, even if they've done a great job of investing their money, they've saved well, they have a good lifestyle, when we look at the things that could ultimately undermine their plan or cause their plan to fail or have a lot of hardship, it's often in these areas we're going to talk about right now. So we want to make sure that we have good protection for yourself, for your family. Number of insurances mentioned here, car insurance, obviously legally we have to have it, but we also want to make sure that we have enough coverage. Worked with many people in the past that have gotten benefits from the car accident, and we want to make sure that those levels are appropriate. We know that there's been changes in our laws here in Michigan. We want to be aware of that. Homeowners insurance, perhaps our most expensive thing that we own, we want to make sure it's protected. Renter's insurance, your personal property, and then liability. Things we talk about all the time with people to make sure that they have adequate coverage so that they don't have a huge unexpected out-of-pocket cost that could cause their significant harm to their finances. Medical insurance, certainly critical for all of us. You're familiar with some of these programs already. Perhaps you've been on Medicaid, you've been on Medicare. Medicare is something all of us deal with, maybe even with our parents. So understanding how that ties in with private insurance. We talk about this as well. Again, one of the things that causes people's financial struggles and one of the things that can cause significant harm is when there's a medical event. If we aren't properly insured, we have bills that pile up, that could certainly cause our plan to fail, and we don't want that to happen. So if you're offered medical insurance through work and it is appropriate for what you need, these are some of the plans. There's PPMO, HMO, HDHP. You'll get information on many of these, but the goal of having it, we want to protect your physical, emotional, and your financial needs. Those are all vitally important as you get back working. It's very likely that your company may offer some sort of life insurance. Life insurance is another critical asset to help protect those you love. It's hard to think about these things sometimes, what can happen, but life insurance is certainly a great gift that you can give to your family to make sure if something were to ever happen, that you're covered and that they would be provided for financially. We help people with this all the time. First, we review what they have available through their employer. Some employers provide an amount of life insurance to all their employees. The other option, and this is especially important if perhaps you have some health issues that may prevent you from getting good pricing on life insurance, buying it on your own, would be looking at group benefits through work. Perhaps you can buy some life insurance through work for a very reasonable cost, and that would help protect your family and help give peace of mind that you have some coverage in place. And last benefit to think about here, disability income insurance. Certainly very important, and many of you so understand this, being that perhaps you've been on SSDI, you've seen that as being a form of insurance to help provide you and your family income. Programs are available through employers as well. The most common is group long-term disability. So if you work for your company, the company provides a benefit, and typically that would cover about 60% of your base salary. There are limitations that can come up, so that's something we review carefully with our clients. Make sure that the group benefit is appropriate, that it will truly protect the family for the amount of time we want it to. Again, a very important thing to think about though, as you return to work, if you're going through your trial work period and then things are working out and you're able to continue, then that would be a benefit that you certainly would want to look for and be mindful of. I have a personal story with this. My father, when I was 7 years old, was injured at work, and dad was not able to work for about 3 years. And I was 7 years old at the time. We talk a lot about emotions and money with our clients, and research shows that most of our emotions and our attitudes towards money are formed by about 7 years old. So I remember that time period quite vividly. I know that it was very difficult on my mom and dad, certainly my dad, being able to not only deal with an injury that was devastating to him, but also thinking about his family, dealing with the legalities and everything. So again, having a source of income for your family and knowing that that's there in the case of a disability, certainly something we're very, very aware of, and we want to make sure that you're covered appropriately. Retirement. You may be many years away from this, thinking, why are we talking so far down into the future? It's because it's really never too early to think about retirement. Not only thinking about some of the bigger questions, if you're close to retirement, like where do I want to live? Where do I want to spend my time? You may already have a beach picked out where you want to retire, how long your retirement's going to last. But it's important to think about this too, because we talked about savings. That's something that hopefully we can prepare for and save for. We have a lot of good problems now in our society. People are living longer. They're enjoying their retirement years more. So we want you to be able to take advantage of that too and make sure that you have enough saved up. And as we're looking at someone's plan for retirement, as we're looking at strategies, we want to think about all the sources of income they have. Social Security. In the future, perhaps, what age should they retire at and take Social Security? Many of our clients have a measure of savings saved up, and then perhaps they are receiving other benefits like SSDI, for example. How does that fit into the picture? Retirement accounts. They might have other things that were gifted to them from family members as an inheritance, personal savings. So putting all that together, figuring all that out, that's when we can help plan and think about a budget for retirement, what you can afford, what lifestyle you'd be able to sustain, and think about some of the things you want to enjoy. So this 4-box strategy, this is a good example. So we're looking at income sources, reliable, predictable sources of income. Again, Social Security. I know, like with my family, my mom and dad, I know that check comes in every month. And that's the starting point of our budgeting that I help with them, how much that's going to be every month. And then other savings they have, more of the income from assets there at the bottom in the orange. Not as predictable, but still available. And then think about the lifestyle you want. There's the necessary expenses. We have to take care of those. Housing, food, healthcare, things like that. But then also think about the discretionary. That's where more of the fun comes in. That's what we want to help people with too. They're non-essential, but they certainly add to the quality of life. We want you to get the most out of your life, be able to enjoy the things that you envision, doing a little bit of traveling, participating in hobbies that you like, things like that. Those are so important for all of us. Finally, another thing to highlight quickly, estate planning. Only about 1/3 of people in this country usually have an estate plan in place, and it's very unfortunate. It's another subject. It's like life insurance. None of us like to think about what could happen, some of the negatives, but I can tell you from experience, and we can in our practice, people that did not do this, did not take care of these things, oftentimes it can leave a real disaster for their family behind. This is especially critical when we work with people that have a loved one with a disability. If they are on Medicaid and SSI, perhaps planning hasn't been done. There isn't a trust in place maybe to give them some financial help in the future. It could cause a really negative impact to everyone. By taking care of this type of planning, even it's the basics, maybe you start with a will that might even be available through your employer, with service that allows you to develop a will. Maybe if you have some needs that are a little more complicated, we work a lot with what's called a supplemental trust or a special needs trust. Someone that has a disability, we want to protect their government benefits, and we also want to protect their quality of life. So that's the mechanism we typically use. It can be complex, but it doesn't have to be. And if you get the right people in place, it's really not difficult to get these things taken care of. And it's helping you get peace of mind. That's the ultimate goal of doing all of that. Let's take a moment and talk about goals. What's most important to you? As you start getting more income in, as you start seeing more opportunities for your money, these are some things we would want you to think about. Part of our practice all the time. What do you want your money to do for you? What's important? Maybe it's getting out of debt. You've had some setbacks, credit card bills are a little high. Maybe you'd like to get those out of your life. Perhaps you'd like to save up now for a home or a car. Now that you're getting back to work, maybe you need better transportation, or you'd like to get some form of transportation that you own. I'd like to own a car. I'm going to save up for that. And of course, other avenues here, retirement, we talked about, vacation. Maybe you want to help your family out. That may be part of what's important to you. So there, again, no limit of what kind of goals we can set, what we can try to achieve with our money. Think about setting SMART goals. That's an acronym you may be familiar with seeing. What are SMART goals? Well, they're specific. So we have a target clear in mind. It's measurable. I can see it being measured. I can see the benefits as I'm working towards the goal. We have our action items. It's relevant. And we have a deadline. It's time bound. So those are good principles to think about. Maybe it's, I would like to pay off all my credit card debt by December 31st, 2024. And then I look at measuring that. Well, I know I'd have to do $100 a month. And actionable, I'm going to do that every 15th of the month when my paycheck comes in. And certainly relevant to something we want to accomplish. So just some examples to think about. Goals, we're always balancing our wants and our concerns. One thing, all of us have unlimited wants, probably. Again, I could think of a list of so many things that I'd love to do with my money or own, but I know I have limited resources. So I need to balance that between the right side there, my concerns, paying debt, or paying my bills, saving for the future, and my wants. Maybe I want to own a home. Talked about getting a car, go on vacation. It's a balancing act that we want to do. So that's where we can help people look at their overall financial picture and see what makes sense. We want to try to accomplish as much as we can on the left, and also making sure that we take care of the items on the right. Last question I'd like to ask is, this is something we talk about, what keeps you up at night? What's really important to you? If there's a specific area that you really tend to worry about, maybe it's income. Perhaps if for a long time you've had a limited income, and that's something that's a concern because the cost of living is not getting any cheaper. That's certainly been evident the last couple of years. All we hear about in the news is inflation. You don't have to look very far if you go to the grocery store, things like that. We know that prices have been going up and up. Unfortunately, our salaries haven't been keeping up with that. So that's a pressure on a family. Savings, retirement, debt, all kinds of things that we can think about. But let's address the things that are most important to you. And I'd like to just show this slide, setting an income goal. A lot of times we don't really think about how much money we'll make over a lifetime. This uses $75,000 a salary, so roughly $35 an hour. Let's say the person's age 30. If they get some 2% increases over the time by the time they reach age 67, they've earned over $4 million. So even if we go a lesser amount, if we made half of that, we're still have earned over $2 million over that period. Unfortunately, we don't keep all of that. We know we talked about the bills and cost of living, but think about all those resources coming in. We want to make sure that we protect them and take care of them as best as we can. And like we talked about, so many things to save for. We want to make it a reality for you and try to help plan for that. And I like to just quickly share this. Again, people ask, what's a good retirement goal? Well, if we have a nest egg amount of money we've saved, we can think about as a baseline 15 times our retirement income. So if we make $50,000 a year by the time we're retired, and if we were able to have 15 times that amount saved up over many years of savings, that's a good goal to have. And that might be a lofty goal, but we'd want to at least have a plan in mind to save some money for our future. Last thing, we had talked about debt. Think about setting a debt payment goal as well. When you do that, you're freeing up money that you can use elsewhere. If you get the debts out of your life, credit card debt, if we could even have the goal of maybe owning a home by retirement, it's a lofty goal, but again, many people are able to accomplish that by being frugal and paying themselves first. We can save more money. Think about all the ways that debt can spiral out of control. And we'll talk about the concept of good debt and bad debt too. So we want to know our debt. What do you think about between good debt and bad debt? Well, a good debt might be something we own, like a house or a car. At least we have an asset that we own. It's really important. We need a place to live. We need to get back and forth to work. Bad debt would be something like credit card debt. Yes, it can be a handy tool and we can use them when needed, but credit card debt, it can spiral out of control very quickly. Typically, it is a very high interest rate. It's hard to get out of that spiral when you create a balance on the credit card and the interest rate is so high that you can only make minimum payments. That can be very difficult on anybody. So think about that concept as you manage your debt and set ultimately the goal of eliminating that bad debt first if you can, and then we can focus on the larger items. So just a couple things to share as we conclude. Avoid the following money mistakes. There's so many we could talk about, but some of the big ones here, very simple, but principles that are timeless. We want to have a budget. We want to keep more money than we spend. I can attest to the fact, number 3 here, I've really embraced Facebook Marketplace. I used to always buy everything new. Now I don't have to. It's available and I can probably get it for a fraction of the cost that it would take me to buy something new. So that's something to think about. We talked about the difference between wants and needs. We want to make sure that our needs are taken care of first. Misjudging big expenses, failing to negotiate. A lot of things we could negotiate, maybe get a lower price on. There's discounts available and paying extra fees. Ultimately, the goal is we want to make sure that you keep more of your money and give you all kinds of ideas on how to keep more in your pocket and save for your future as well. So in summary for there, really key, simple, right, but hard to execute. Manage your money, prepare for setbacks, stay on track, and make financially sound decisions. And as you get on this journey, getting back to work, so excited for you and know that there'll be decisions to make. But certainly if we can be of assistance, we want to help you on that journey as well. So where do we go from here? Just a summary, you can get a hold of us at staltfinancial.com. If you want to learn more about our special needs practice, it's staltfinancial.com/special needs. As I mentioned, we'd love for you to get a copy of my book and to share that with others if you'd like. You can schedule an introductory call on our website. We have a link there to our Calendly. book a session at the top of the page, calendly.com/financial, and my phone number and email as well. Well, we want to thank you all so much for allowing us the pleasure to present today. And now we'll turn our program back to Steve.
Thank you so much, Chris. Great information that we can all share and get some help from. All of us can benefit from the planning stages and moving through, especially we're starting a new job, helping to kind of plan things out financially. Thank you again, Chris, and your team. And if people have questions, you can try to put it in the chat at the bottom of the screen. And we're going to save some time towards the end of the total presentation and try to answer any questions that you might have out there. Next, we're going to turn it over to our Business Network Division. We have both Gene Bomarito and Christine Roberts with us today, and they are part of MRS, and some of our customers may be working with local counselors, but we work together as a team and work with the Business Network Division on return to work services. And so without further ado, here's Gene Bomarito and Christine Roberts.
Hello, everyone. I would like to thank you for joining us. This second presentation is intended to provide an understanding of how Michigan Rehabilitation Services can support both individuals and businesses in assisting persons into employment. And this would, of course, include persons who are employed or who have been employed or have been out of work due to some functional loss secondary to an accident, perhaps at work or outside of work, or due to an illness, or perhaps due to a disability, whether congenital or acquired through a person's lifetime. So let me move directly then into how Michigan Rehabilitation Services Business Network Division assists customers. Well, like the entire agency, the Business Network Division uses a dual customer model. We serve both persons with disabilities and businesses. And we devote at times the entirety of our services to an individual with a disability, but typically our service delivery is devoted to business customers or to business customers when they are in relation to individual customers, persons with disabilities. And this is for instances, for example, when the business is attempting to interview persons with disabilities or hire persons with disabilities or accommodate a person with a disability or bring back into employment a person with a disability, or also to operate as a business in compliance with prescribed standards of accommodation, such as defined by the Americans with Disabilities Act or related legislation, the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 and subsequent legislation. And so because we provide services to both businesses and individuals with disability and get to the core of enabling the employment of persons with disabilities, it is for that reason that our service delivery is particularly relevant to the topical goal of returning to work. Today's topic is a means to achieving a financially secure future. So for individuals with disabilities, for our individual customers, the elements of our service deliveries that are perhaps best recognized, most commonly thought of for returning to work involve evaluating customers for accommodation strategies, conceptualizing and implementing the customer's use of accommodations or ergonomic adjustments, including the use of assistive technologies in the workplace. It could also be developing with a business customer as the employer of an individual customer the programs or processes in the work environment that gradually restore a person's tolerance for work. In other words, the stay-at-work programs, return-to-work programs, work hardening programs. And these programs are typically very purposefully defined, sequenced, and monitored, often by our occupational therapists. Also, defining an individual's functional abilities, their skills and their aptitudes, perhaps their interests, certainly their education and their formalized training for the purposes of identifying another career. This is often done with the use of transferable skill analysis and with all the elements of career planning. That could include informational interviews and job shadowing, for an example. And then also our agency is sometimes thought of for offering businesses worksite evaluations and consultations to modify a work environment so that the functional requirements of working in that work environment are, we'll say, lessened, and where not so much for a specific individual with a disability, but with the sense that disabilities will no longer impact performance in that particular work environment, such as using better tools or altering work processes, providing improved work processes, or implementing things like universal design that benefits persons, whether they have a disability or not. Our individual services, we'll think of these, let's say, from starting with the perspective of an occupational therapist. These individual services can be devoted to an individual with a disability. They sometimes are. And sometimes occupational therapists are working alone, often in a combined strategy with the business relations consultants of our division or our vocational rehabilitation counselor. But the idea is to analyze. Very often their service delivery is to analyze and quantify a person's functioning, whether it's physical, cognitive, or emotional. They might do that by interviewing the individual customer. They might analyze medical documentation such as functional capacity evaluations, neuropsychological reports, the results of community-based work assessments, any related kind of information. So they're quantifying the functional capacities of the person, carefully considering ability, but also taking note of the disability. They quantify the essential job functions and the functional requirements necessary to perform work, and usually a specific job, and to acclimate in that work environment. So from there, they apprehend any critical disparities that exist between the functional capacities of the individual and the functional capacities of the job and the work environment. And from there, they can anticipate alternative ways of working for the individual to sufficiently reduce those disparities. They conceptualize how alternative ways of working can be achieved for the individual in the work setting, such as by making ergonomic adjustments, by making recommendations for changes in the work environment, for restructuring the job, maybe with the time of the start of the job or other elements of the job. Or they might be integrating devices and assistive technologies for the individual when performing job tasks in the workplace. And they can be, very often, they spend their time educating the individual customer on how to optimize the use of those alternative strategies of working and the use of those tools or technologies. They could also end up supporting job coaches that may be involved, or first-line supervision to help supervisors understand the potentials of using those alternative strategies to optimize work performance. Now, the business services, let's say, that are directed to businesses, well, it's drawing on the same capacities really for the individual customer with a disability, but when they're directed toward the business customer, then the services of the business network division becomes purpose for empowering the business for the benefit of the business, the operations of the business, also for the benefit of the business's employees or job candidates that may come to the business. Ultimately, it could impact individual customers of our agency that are some way associated with that business, but not necessarily. It could just be the employees of that business. And that can include developing current and very accurate position descriptions based on careful measurements of physical and cognitive requirements of itemized component work tasks. We also consult on creating inclusive methods of interviewing that can be used in certain prescribed, let's say, in relation to certain prescribed disabilities, families of disabilities, to work around certain challenges and to really make that interview optimal for both parties. We evaluate work environments to eliminate processes or work site designs that really needlessly increase functional requirements of job candidates, or they needlessly contribute to safety risks such as repetitive motion injuries, or are needlessly inefficient with respect to the work process. So we provide evaluations and consultations to help business customers understand how to achieve compliance with the ADA, such as with workplace accommodations, the interactive process, interviewing, hiring, accessibility in the workplace, such as with respect to entrances, aisleways, restrooms, and also with safety processes. We provide training on unintended or unnoticed attitudinal barriers in the workplace that can negatively impact candidates or persons with disabilities. We use Windmills training for that. We also provide disability etiquette training. It's related, but not quite the same. It's more about how to work in a work environment. Let's say persons with disabilities, persons without disabilities, using best practices for social etiquette to work together. We provide the referral of qualified job candidates to businesses. We provide consultation on return to work programs and strategies of keeping valued employees who are at risk of going out, let's say on workers' comp or some kind of long-term or short-term disability, or let's say to keep people that might just assume that it would be better for them to resign because of some unintended or let's say surprising medical condition that has occurred and is really challenging them. So, and we also help businesses fashion their own workforce, kind of develop it. We provide some individualized training to our customers, but we also can help businesses use work-based learning, such as internships, on-the-job training, apprenticeships, and related kinds of work-based learning programs. Now, the helpful strategies for return to work programs are something that we also provide as a service to businesses, to our business partners. And it's an important safeguard that our business customers should consider when it comes to protecting their workforce. And that's to offer long-term disability or short-term disability for their employees, and for their employees to also consider opting for those policies. These policies protect the income of employees when some kind of unthinkable occurrence happens, such as a stroke or some kind of accident where a person could no longer go into work and derive wages and meet their financial requirements. And when they're not able to meet their financial requirements, now they start to lose assets. They're not meeting their bills, their recovery slows down or becomes a secondary concern. And so they may even try to return to work before they're fully healed, or let's say sufficiently healed to return to work in some capacity or another. And so as a result of coming back to work too early, they never really recover their former level of performance. They never really acclimate again. So what we do is encourage these types of policies that protect income. We encourage the communication between the business and the employee that's out on benefit. We want to encourage that discussion of how that person is valued, how they will come back to work, how they will be realizing very positive outcomes from coming back to work. There's communication of how their, let's say, their treatment is going, how they're realizing medical gains. If they are not realizing certain medical gains, what provisions are going to be necessary to get them back to work in the way of maybe using alternative work or strategies of worksite accommodation, or let's say something as formal as a return to work program. We want to emphasize also that planning of the accommodation is something that the Business Network division can do very nicely. Our occupational therapists are there and can help a business that's wanting to bring back a specific individual, can really anticipate, what those accommodations are going to look like. So the strategy here is to protect the income of a valued worker with these policies, but when they achieve, medical, a good medical outcome, when they're sufficiently healed, to make it easy for them to return to work. And what are these effective methods of return to work that, we're talking about? Well, it could be something as simple as some kind of ergonomic evaluation, some kind of reasonable accommodation that will help a person get around a specific task related to their job, and maybe the use of some assistive technology. And, beyond that, they're fine. It could mean, it could mean beyond that. It could mean using something like a formalized transitional work. This would be temporary work that is, kind of contrived, kind of built up and meant to empower persons with certain kinds of functional losses. For other businesses that don't really need that much of a formalized approach, they don't have that many people going out, they may simply opt for more of a graduated return to work, where the idea is it's understood that this employee coming back is going to need time. They're going to need time to acclimate. They may need an altered work schedule so that they can continue with their ongoing physical therapy, and certain accommodations, certain assistive technologies are adapted, proven, and they could even be maintained for the foreseeable future. That's the way that person is going to do their job, maybe a little differently, but they're going to recapture their full productivity. We can also assist individuals and the business with understanding the rights and the responsibilities under the Family Medical Leave Act, also under the ADA, and to some degree, the short-term disability and long-term disability policies, although these vary from underwriter to underwriter. There are certain common themes usually that are something that we can speak to. They're something that we can address and maybe anticipate with persons to help them protect their assets while they're off. So with all that said, I'd like to now turn this over to Christine and allow her to speak in greater detail on elements such as accommodation. Thank you, Christine.
This is Christine. Thanks, Jean. So yeah, Jean said the word accommodation and interactive process a few times. And so we're going to dive into that so that you guys have the education that you need to take away with you into a return to work strategy or process. So what is an accommodation? The ADA tells us it's an adjustment to the way a job is usually performed or the work environment that permits a qualified applicant or employee with a disability to participate in the job application process, perform essential functions of a job, and enjoy the benefits and privileges of employment equal to those enjoyed by employees without disabilities. So that statement tells us that it can occur anytime in the employment process. It could be when you are a candidate or an applicant. It could be when you are an actual employee, and it could be with or without either starting the job and knowing you need an accommodation, or later down the road when you start having difficulty or if you've acquired a disability. And it also covers not just the essential job functions, but it also covers benefits and privileges. So what does that mean? That is, I am a wheelchair user and I need to be able to get into the break room and the kitchen and be able to warm up my lunch just like any other employee, or be able to utilize a company vehicle just like any other employee. That may not be a specific essential job function, but it is something I do within my day-to-day. So that can be accommodated. So let's talk about some reasonable accommodation examples. Again, this could be a change or modification to a job function, or identifying which job functions are essential and which are marginal. It could also be accommodating a process to complete those. So an example could be being able to carry 50 pounds of grain from one end of a warehouse to another. Well, does the person have to carry that? Or is the essential job function for that to be moved? And how could we accommodate those physical restrictions that a person may have? It could be acquiring equipment or devices or assistive technologies. I could have low vision and I need a 27-inch monitor when I'm doing computer tasks so that I can see it appropriately. So it could be as simple as a piece of equipment. It can be providing qualified readers or interpreters so that effective communication is used throughout the workplace. So being able to have an interpreter on the line or captioning whenever necessary, that could be an example of an accommodation. And again, keep in mind, it doesn't have to be equipment or a device. It could be modifying a policy or a process, or making a policy so that the job is just shaped a little bit differently. When we talk about accommodations, we refer to the interactive process. This is the language that the ADA gives us. And this is a mutual understanding between the employer and the employee regarding accommodations. So typically it is when the employee comes to the employer and says, "Hi, excuse me, I'm having difficulty seeing the computer. I need a larger monitor." That is a cue that the interactive process has started for accommodation. So when that process is going on, there's some things that we need to think about. What are the specific essential job functions that the employee cannot do currently? What are some ideas that the employee may have for accommodations? We need to remember that individuals with disabilities are their subject matter expert in their experience. They may already know what they need. They just need it documented and completed within the workplace. What documentation is needed to verify? Many of us have invisible disabilities. No one would know that we have a condition unless we disclosed it. And so often an employer may not understand the need. This is where they may ask for medical documentation to say, yes, I have low vision, and that's why I need a 27-inch monitor. The ADA reminds us that accommodations must be effective. When we talked about SMART goals, Chris talked about SMART goals earlier, that's kind of the goal of Title I of the ADA. Is the accommodation effective? That is an umbrella term because the ADA wants to encompass all industries, all conditions, and essentially allow the two parties to customize the approach and the solutions. And also we want to remind you of informal accommodations. This is a risk factor that we want to stay away from. An example going back to the monitor, right? So I could go to my first line manager and say, "Hey, I'm having difficulty seeing this. I need a 27-inch monitor." And my manager's like, "Yeah, sure, no problem. Here you go." That manager leaves in a month and a new manager says, "Why do you have this piece of equipment?" If that's not documented anywhere, you've now been in a situation with an informal accommodation, and that's not protecting both parties. So I want to give you guys a quick case example of a time that B&D allowed or was allowed into a workplace and helped both parties through the process. So we're going to talk about customer Mr. K. He was an engineer in a manufacturing facility, and after sustaining an incomplete T-level spinal cord injury, so really a lot of lower extremity involvement, he now uses a wheelchair for long distance walking, and he can't climb open ladders, right? So a ladder in a plant that doesn't have a cage around it. His doctor says no way. So the employer says that in this job description, all employees must physically be able to navigate through all the areas of the plant at any time in a job shift, maybe, maybe not, depending on what the equipment is doing. However, that's not noted in their job description, what the physical capacities are needed for that job. So the MRS specialist was able to give risk factors and problem solve with both parties to identify what this accommodation process and the return to work could look like. So here we identified potential accommodations for that specific person for their return to work, including graded schedule, new medical information, all of that. We also gave the employer ideas of how that job description can be modified to protect them as to what they need from the physical capacity of an employee, but also how they could trial multiple different accommodations within that job description. And then also giving them educational resources about what the interactive process should look like in the roles of both parties throughout that process. So now I'm just going to put up our contact information for Jean and myself. My name is Christine Roberts. I am a statewide consultant. Jean Barmarito is our business relations consultant, and he's in the Eastern District. Thank you so much for letting us give you some information today. And I'm going to turn it back over to Steve.
Thank you so much, Christine, and thank you, Jean, for the great information in regards to how we can help in a return to work. And as you kind of heard both Jean and Christine talk about the dual customers that we serve, both our customers, our internal customers that are coming here to MRS to return to work or to find employment or to help themselves in a situation to help maintain employment, and or the employers themselves. Great number of detailed information about both the kinds of services that MRS can provide to you. I also want to take the time here to thank Chris Ball and the team at Stult Financial. Thank you so much for the wonderful information in regards to kind of planning that return to work, and just some of the things as you're starting a new job, some of the things to think about in terms of just planning for your own budget and for the future. Just some things to kind of keep in mind, some good rules of thumb. I know it's tough when we're first coming back to work, or maybe we've been out for a period of time, but just to kind of keep these things in mind and to do what you can in terms of maybe thinking about the future and kind of paying yourself first kind of idea. So again, thank you, Chris. Want to send a special thanks to Tyler Gross today, who's helping out with the production behind the scenes here of our webinar. Also, our interpreters, thank you very much. And Tanya Peterson, also from BND, to help us get our guests today. So again, thank you everyone for joining us. If you have questions, I did try to look at the chat. I didn't really see any extra questions in there, but I did put in my contact information in the chat. And so if you have any additional information, anything you heard today, or feel free to contact me, and we'll pass that along to any one of our guests. And I'm Steve Peterson. I'm at Peterson S4 at michigan.gov, and my phone, direct phone, 810-247-7940. Be happy to answer any questions if you think of some down the line. Again, thanks everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your day.